Emma Collins rushed through the apartment, her phone pressed against her ear while she balanced her laptop bag on one shoulder and tried to zip George's winter coat with the other. "Mr. Thompson, I promise the campaign will be ready by Monday," she said, her tone sharp but controlled. Her eyes darted to the clock on the wall, already past 7. George, standing patiently by the door, tilted his head and asked, "Mom, will we still have time to stop by the bakery before we go to Aunt Anna's? You promised we'd get gingerbread cookies this year." Emma sighed, her heart pinched by the disappointment hiding in his voice. "Of course, sweetheart, I haven't forgotten." On the other end of the call, Mr. Thompson cleared his throat. "Emma, I appreciate your dedication, but you need to remember the stakes. The client wants options. 5 of them, not 3. They'll meet us right after Christmas, so this weekend is crucial." Emma bit her lip, forcing herself not to glance at George's expectant eyes. She had promised him a real Christmas this year, after too many holidays lost 2 deadlines and glowing screens. "Yes, Mr. Thompson, I'll take care of it," she replied before hanging up. George shifted uncomfortably. "You said this year would be different." Emma crouched down to his level, brushing his dark hair back. "It will be, George, I promise. We're going to spend Christmas with the whole family. No more missing out." But even as she said it, guilt settled heavy in her chest. Promises were easy. Keeping them, especially with a boss like hers, was the real challenge. The city streets buzzed with the chaos of December. Car horns, flashing Christmas lights, and bundled up pedestrians carrying bags full of last-minute gifts. Emma guided George toward her car, trying to shake off the lingering weight of the phone call. "Did you know, Mom," George began, his voice brightening as he tugged on his gloves, "that dogs can hear sounds 4 times farther than humans?" Emma blinked, caught off guard by the random fact. "No, I didn't." "Where did you learn that?" "At school, we're studying animals, and, you know, I still think it would be amazing to have a dog. A beagle, maybe." Emma froze for a split second. A dog. He had been hinting at it for months, ever since a classmate had brought their beagle to show and tell. The way George's eyes had lit up, Ma hadn't forgotten. But a dog meant responsibility, time, energy, things she wasn't sure she had enough of. "We'll see," she said softly, starting the car. George leaned against the window, watching the snowflakes swirl outside. "You always say that." By the time they reached Emma's office to drop off a few urgent documents, George had grown quiet. Emma parked quickly, promising him hot chocolate afterward. But her mind was already running through campaign slogans and marketing angles. Inside, the office was nearly deserted, except for Margaret Hilta-Sharp, elegant executive Emma admired but also feared becoming. Margaret, dressed in a perfectly tailored red suit, glanced up from her desk. "Emma," she said smoothly, "still working at this hour? I should have guessed. You remind me of myself when I was your age." Emma forced a smile. "That's quite a compliment, Margaret. Compliment or warning, depending on how you see it." Margaret replied with a thin smirk. "But dedication pays off. I hear Mr. Thompson has a very short list for the upcoming promotion, and your name is right at the top." Emma's pulse quickened. A promotion. More money, more stability for George. Maybe even shorter hours, though she doubted it. Still, it was hard to ignore the temptation. "Thank you," Emma said, her voice careful. George tugged on her sleeve, whispering, "Mom, can we go now? It's late." Margaret's eyes softened briefly at the sight of him. "Spend Christmas well, Emma. If you can manage to take a break, that is." As they left, George muttered under his breath, "She works too much, just like you." Emma glanced at him, a pang of shame running through her. She tightened her grip on his hand. "That's why this Christmas will be different," she insisted, as if saying it enough times would make it true. Hours later, with the car loaded gifts stacked in the back seat and George bundled in his blanket, Emma drove toward her parents' countryside home. George hummed quietly, nibbling on one of the gingerbread cookies they'd managed to grab. You know, Mom, he said suddenly, even if we don't get a dog this year, I think it would be nice if we could just have time together. Like real time. No phones, no work. Emma's throat tightened. You're right, she whispered. But as the road stretched on, her phone buzzed again, glowing with yet another message from Mr. Thompson. She silenced it, forcing herself to focus on the snowy road ahead. For George, for Christmas, for once. The drive to Emma's parents' house was long, but George's excitement filled the car with energy. He leaned forward from the back seat, pointing out every decorated house they passed. Look, Mom. That one has Santa on the roof, and that one has reindeer in the yard. Emma smiled, her hands tight on the wheel. I see them, sweetheart. Pretty impressive, huh? George nodded eagerly, his face pressed against the cold window. Grandma and Grandpa's house will be the best though. It always is. Emma's heart warmed at his words. Memories of her childhood Christmases rushed back, lights strung across the porch. The smell of cinnamon wafting from the kitchen, her parents laughing as they handed out ornaments for everyone to hang on the tree. But when they finally pulled into the long driveway, something felt wrong. The house was dark. No lights twinkled from the windows. No wreath hung on the door. Not even a single decoration. George frowned. Mom, where are the lights? Where's the tree? Emma slowed the car, confusion rising in her chest. That's strange. They always decorate early. They stepped out into the snow, their breath visible in the cold night. Emma knocked on the door. Silence. She knocked again, harder this time. Grandma, Grandpa, it's us, Emma and George. Still nothing. George tugged at her coat sleeve, his voice trembling. Mom, what if something happened? Emma shook her head quickly. No, I'm sure it's fine. Maybe they wanted us to decorate together this year. She pulled out the spare key hidden beneath a loose brick by the porch, the same spot since she was a teenager. Inside, the house was quiet, too quiet. No tree, no garland, no familiar scent of gingerbread. George's eyes widened as he whispered, "This doesn't feel like Christmas at all." Before Emma could respond, the phone in her pocket buzzed. It was her mother. "Mom." Emma answered, relief washing over her. "Emma, there you are. We tried calling and emailing, but you didn't answer. We're in Florida, dear. We thought you and George would spend the holidays working again, so we made plans." Emma froze. "Florida? You didn't tell me." "We did, sweetheart. You must have missed it. We didn't want to bother. You've been so busy. We thought you'd understand." Emma's stomach sank. George's hopeful eyes searched hers as she hung up. "Well," he asked, "they went to Florida," she admitted, her voice hollow. George blinked. "Without us." Emma swallowed hard. "They thought I'd be working." Tears welled up in his eyes, but he blinked them back bravely. "So, it's just us." Emma knelt down, pulling him close. "It's just us. But you know what? That doesn't mean it can't still be special." George sniffled, trying to smile. "We can decorate ourselves." Emma nodded firmly. "Exactly. We'll make this house shine brighter than ever." That night, Emma called her sister Anna, who lived nearby. "You won't believe this," Emma said over the phone. "Mom and Dad are in Florida, left the house completely empty." Anna laughed, her voice warm and teasing. "Classic. Guess the honor of saving Christmas falls to you now." "I don't even have the energy to decorate, Anna. I brought work home with me. I was hoping Mom and Dad would help with George while I caught up. Well, guess what? George doesn't need babysitting. He needs a Christmas. And you, big sister, need a reality check." Emma rolled her eyes. "Thanks for the pep talk, Officer Anna. Anytime now. I'm coming over tomorrow. We're turning that empty house into a winter wonderland." "No excuses." Emma sighed, though a small smile tugged at her lips. "Fine, but if George asks for a beagle again, I'm sending him to live with you." Anna laughed. "Deal." Later that evening, George padded into the kitchen, holding a dusty box of lights he'd found in the garage. Mom, can we start now? Please? Emma looked at the mountain of paperwork spread across the dining table. Deadlines loomed like storm clouds in her mind. But then she saw the anticipation in George's eyes, the kind of magic only a child could feel at Christmas. She closed her laptop. Yes, let's start now. George's face lit up. Together, they untangled old strings of lights, hung stockings on the fireplace, and even managed to find a box of ornaments tucked away in the attic. By midnight, the once empty house had begun to glow. George collapsed onto the couch, exhausted but smiling. It already feels more like Christmas. Emma wrapped a blanket around him, brushing a kiss to his forehead. And it will only get better, I promise. But as she looked around the half-decorated living room, she couldn't help but wonder if promises were enough. Because deep down, she knew something was still missing. By morning, the Collins family home looked slightly more alive, but it was far from the festive paradise George remembered. A few strings of lights flickered weakly across the porch, and the tree they had pulled down from the attic leaned to one side, its branches uneven and sparse. George stood in the living room, hands on his hips. It looked sad. Emma rubbed her forehead, exhausted from staying up late untangling lights. We'll fix it. With a little music, some hot cocoa, and a lot of patience, this place will feel like Christmas again. George perked up. And maybe Aunt Anna will help, too. Emma smiled softly. Yes, Aunt Anna always helps. As if on cue, a knock came at the door. Anna Collins entered, her police jacket unzipped, snowflakes clinging to her hair. Permission to enter the Christmas disaster zone, she announced playfully. George ran to hug her. Aunt Anna, you made it? Of course I did, champ, Anna said, ruffling his hair. I heard Grandma and Grandpa abandoned ship for sunny Florida. That means we're in charge now. Emma rolled her eyes. You make it sound like a military operation. Anna smirked. Well, isn't it? We've got lights to hang, stockings to stuff, and a tree that looks like it might collapse at any moment. George giggled, running to the box of ornaments. Let's start with the tree. Hours passed in laughter and chaos. George carefully unwrapped each ornament, telling Anna the stories Emma had once shared with him, stories she had almost forgotten herself. This one, George said, holding up a faded glass ball. Mom told me she made it in 3rd grade. Right, Mom? Emma took it from his hands, her chest tightening. Yes, your grandmother saved it all these years. Anna watched her sister closely. See, the spirit of Christmas is still here. You just buried it under piles of deadlines and sticky notes. Emma shot her a look, but she couldn't deny the truth. By the time the sun dipped behind the snowy horizon, the living room glowed with soft lights. Stockings hung neatly above the fireplace, and the tree, though still a little crooked, shone with ornaments, old and new. George clapped his hands. It's perfect. Emma smiled, a rare moment of peace washing over her. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to breathe, to soak in the sight of her son's joy. Later that evening, while Anna and George drank cocoa in the kitchen, Emma stepped outside to toss some boxes into the recycling bin. That's when she noticed the sound of barking. Curious, she followed the noise down the snowy street, where a figure stood near the sidewalk. A man, tall with broad shoulders, wrestled gently with a leash. At the end of it bounded a small beagle, its nose to the ground, tail wagging furiously. The man laughed, exasperated. Sophie, come on. He's not going to sit still long enough for you to tie that bow on his collar. A little girl, bundled in a pink coat, chased after the beagle. But Dad, he needs to look festive. Emma lingered for a moment, watching the scene unfold. The man finally scooped up the dog, who continued to squirm happily in his arms. The little girl giggled, and Emma couldn't help but smile. Then, as if sensing her presence, the man looked up. Their eyes met across the snowlit street. He offered a friendly nod. Evening, he called out, his voice warm. Emma hesitated, then waved back. Evening, the beagle barked, tail wagging even harder. George, hearing the noise, rushed outside. "Mom, a dog," he cried, eyes wide with excitement. The little girl laughed. "His name is Max. He's a beagle. Isn't he the cutest?" George's jaw dropped. "He's perfect." Emma's chest tightened. She knew what George was thinking, what he had been wishing for all along. A dog of his own. The man crossed the street, still holding the energetic pup. "I'm Oliver Harris," he said, extending his free hand. "This is my daughter, Sophie. And this little troublemaker is Max." Emma shook his hand, her smile polite. "Emma Collins. And this is my son, George." George crouched to scratch behind Max's ears, his face lighting up. "Hi, Max. You're amazing." Oliver chuckled. "Careful, he'll follow you home, if you keep that up." Emma felt a strange flutter in her chest, one she hadn't expected. For the first time, it didn't feel like she and George were alone in this Christmas after all. The next morning, George woke earlier than usual. He tugged on his coat, hat, and boots before Emma had even finished pouring her coffee. "Where are you going so early?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. George's eyes sparkled. "To see Max, of course." Emma sighed, half amused, half worried. "George, you just met them last night. Let's not bother the neighbors too much." But it was too late. George was already at the door, swinging it open to the snowy yard. Emma followed quickly, coffee mug in hand. Across the street, Sophie Harris was building a lopsided snowman. The beagle, Max, bounded around her, his ears flapping and his nose buried in the snow. Oliver Harris stood nearby, his hands tucked into his coat pockets, watching with patient amusement. "George," Sophie called out, waving. "Come help me with the snowman." George didn't need to be asked twice. He dashed over, dropping to his knees beside her. Max immediately leapt onto him, licking his face enthusiastically. George laughed so hard that Emma couldn't help but smile. Oliver looked up and gave Emma a nod. "Morning," he said. "Morning," she replied, stepping closer. Oliver crouched to fix the snowman's crooked carrot nose. "I owe you a thank you. Yesterday, when you waved, Max decided not to run into the street after a squirrel. That was rare." Emma chuckled softly. "Happy to help." "He seems full of energy. Full of mischief, more like it," Oliver admitted. "But Sophie adores him. And honestly, I think he's good for both of us." Emma tilted her head, curious. "Both of you?" Oliver's expression softened, a shadow crossing his face. "It's just the two of us. Since she left, Sophie deserves something constant, something loyal." Emma's chest ached at his words. She glanced at George, who was now racing Max around the yard, both boy and beagle kicking up snow in delighted chaos. "I know what you mean," she said quietly. By afternoon, the four of them were seated around Emma's kitchen table, mugs of hot cocoa steaming in their hands. George and Sophie whispered excitedly about their snowman project, while Max lay sprawled beneath the table, his tail thumping whenever someone said his name. Oliver leaned back, taking in the warm scene. "It feels like I've been here before," he said softly. Emma raised an eyebrow. "Have you?" "Not literally," he explained with a smile. "But this family around a table, laughter, the smell of cocoa feels like home. And I'll admit, that's something we've been missing." Emma felt her cheeks warm. She wasn't used to compliments or confessions from strangers. "Well, it's nice to have company," she admitted. George suddenly sat up straighter. "Mom, can Max sleep over tonight?" Emma almost choked on her cocoa. "George," Sophie giggled. "Max snores. You might regret it." Oliver laughed, shaking his head. "Sorry, Max is trouble enough in one house. But maybe another time." George slumped back into his chair with a dramatic sigh. Emma shot Oliver an apologetic look, but he only smiled knowingly. That evening, after Oliver and Sophie returned home, Emma found herself staring out the window at their house. Lights twinkled from the porch, and faint laughter carried across the snow. Anna walked in, still in her police uniform. She noticed her sister's distant expression and smirked. Don't tell me. You met the mysterious neighbor. Emma folded her arms. He's not mysterious. Just nice and single, Anna teased. Emma shot her a glare. Anna, please. What? It's Christmas. Stranger things have happened. Besides, George clearly loves that dog, and I think you could use a little joy yourself. Emma shook her head, but her thoughts lingered on Oliver's smile. On the way, Sophie's laughter blended so easily with George's. Joy. Could it really be that simple? The next day, Oliver appeared at Emma's doorstep, Max tugging excitedly at the leash. Sorry to drop by unannounced, Oliver began, but I need a favor. Emma blinked, surprised. A favor? He shifted awkwardly. It's about Max. He's supposed to be a Christmas surprise for Sophie. I was planning to keep him hidden until Christmas morning, but with Sophie home all the time, it's impossible. She already suspects something. Emma tilted her head. So, what do you need? Oliver scratched the back of his neck, embarrassed. I was wondering if you might keep him here for a day or two. Just until Christmas morning. Sophie will never think to look across the street. Emma's jaw dropped. You want me to hide a beagle in my house? Oliver winced. I know it sounds ridiculous. And believe me, Max isn't the easiest guest, but it would mean the world to Sophie. Please. Emma hesitated. The thought of George discovering a dog in the house, only to learn it wasn't his, made her stomach twist. But then she remembered Oliver's words about Sophie deserving something loyal. She remembered the sparkle in George's eyes whenever Max was around. Finally, she sighed. All right, but only until Christmas morning. Oliver's face broke into relief. Thank you, Emma. You don't know how much this means. Max barked happily, as if agreeing. George, hearing the noise from upstairs, rushed down. Mom, what was that? Emma froze, adjust. Anna dropping something off. George frowned but accepted the answer. Oliver winked, mouthing a silent thank you before slipping out the door. As Emma closed it behind him, Max sat in the middle of the living room, tail wagging furiously. Emma sighed. What have I gotten myself into? Max adjusted quickly to his new temporary home. Within minutes, the beagle had sniffed every corner of the living room, jumped onto the couch, and tried to chew on the corner of a wrapped present. Emma intercepted him just in time. Oh no you don't, she scolded, tugging the ribbon out of his mouth. Max only wagged his tail and barked cheerfully, clearly thinking this was all a game. Emma shook her head, muttering, Oliver didn't warn me about this. The real challenge came a few minutes later, when George came bounding down the stairs. Mom, who's barking? Emma's heart leaped. She threw a blanket over Max and sat on it quickly, forcing an overly bright smile. Barking? What barking? You must be hearing things. George narrowed his eyes suspiciously. I'm not crazy. I know what a bark sounds like, Emma thought fast. It's the neighbor's dog. Sophie's beagle. You've probably heard him through the walls. George seemed to accept the explanation for now, but Max wriggled beneath the blanket, letting out a muffled woof. Emma laughed nervously. See? Thin walls. George tilted his head. Strange. It sounded like it came from right here. Emma practically pushed him toward the kitchen. Hot chocolate. How about some hot chocolate, George? That night, while George slept upstairs, Emma crept into her room with Max. The beagle jumped onto her bed, circled twice, and plopped down right in the middle. Emma groaned. You're not supposed to be comfortable. You're supposed to be hidden. Max only snored in response. Emma stared at him for a long moment. There was something undeniably comforting about the little dog's presence. For years, her nights had been filled with the glow of her laptop and the endless hum of work stress. But tonight, with Max curled beside her, the house felt alive again. Still, she whispered firmly, this doesn't change anything. You're only here until Christmas morning. The next morning, chaos erupted. Emma tiptoed to the kitchen to make coffee, only to find Max already there, his nose buried in the trash can. Max, she hissed. Too late. George walked in, rubbing his eyes. Mom, what is that? Emma froze. Max froze too, though, only for a second, before trotting happily toward George. George gasped, his entire face lighting up. A dog. Mom, you got me a dog for Christmas. Panic shot through Emma. George, wait. But Max jumped into George's arms, licking his face until the boy collapsed into giggles. This is the best Christmas ever, George cried. Emma's heart ached. She crouched beside him, choosing her words carefully. Sweetheart, he's not ours. He's just visiting. George's smile faltered. Visiting? Yes, Emma said gently. He belongs to someone else. We're just helping out for a little while. George hugged Max tighter, his eyes pleading. But, Mom, he loves me. Look at him. He's perfect. Emma swallowed hard, torn between truth and the longing in her son's eyes. I know he's perfect. But sometimes, perfect things aren't ours to keep. George looked down, silent. Max whined softly, as if sensing the boy's sadness. Emma's chest tightened. This was exactly what she had feared. Later that day, Oliver stopped by to check on Max. He found Emma pacing in the living room, while George sat glumly on the couch, Max's head resting in his lap. Everything okay? Oliver asked carefully. Emma shot him a look. You could have warned me how impossible it would be to keep this a secret. Oliver winced. I should have. I'm sorry. George lifted his head. You mean, Max isn't ours? Oliver crouched down, meeting George's eyes. He's Sophie's Christmas present. But that doesn't mean you can't be his friend too. George's face crumpled. That's not the same. Emma put a hand on her son's shoulder, but he pulled away slightly. Oliver glanced at her, guilt in his eyes. Maybe I should take Max back. Emma shook her head. No, he'll ruin the surprise for Sophie. We'll manage. Oliver hesitated, then nodded. Thank you. I owe you more than I can say. That evening, Anna stopped by. The moment she saw Max, she burst out laughing. Emma Collins, hiding a dog in your house. Now I've seen everything. Emma groaned. Not helping Anna. George perked up. Aunt Anna, can't we keep him? Just for us? Anna crouched beside him, stroking Max's floppy ears. He's a good dog. But your mom's right. Owning a dog is a lot of work. George crossed his arms. I don't care. I'd do all the work. Emma's heart broke a little. George rarely asked for anything, but when he did, it was with all the sincerity in his soul. Anna glanced at her sister, lowering her voice. You know, maybe this isn't just about the dog. Maybe it's about George needing something stable, something constant. Emma sighed, knowing her sister was right. But stability was the one thing she never seemed able to give. That night, after George had gone to bed, Emma sat on the couch with Oliver. Max snored softly at their feet. I didn't realize how hard this would be for George, Emma admitted. Oliver nodded slowly. I know the feeling. Sophie asks about her mom sometimes. I never know what to say. I can't give her what she wants most, no matter how much I wish I could. Emma looked at him, truly looked at him, and for the first time she saw the loneliness behind his steady smile. It mirrored her own. Maybe, she said softly, Christmas isn't about giving everything our kids want. Maybe it's about showing them that even when life doesn't give us what we expect, we can still find joy. Oliver's gaze lingered on hers, warm and unspoken. Between them, Max shifted in his sleep, letting out a content sigh. Emma smiled faintly. Well, at least one of us is at peace. Oliver chuckled. Maybe he knows something we don't. The next few days were a whirlwind of chaos and laughter. Max, the hidden beagle, seemed determined to expose himself at every opportunity. On the second morning, Emma discovered him in the laundry room, triumphantly dragging one of George's socks through the hallway. Max, she hissed, chasing after him. George appeared from his bedroom, wide-eyed. Mom, what's he doing with my sock? Emma forced a smile. He's helping with chores. George burst into laughter as Max zoomed around the living room, the sock flapping like a victory flag. Best helper ever. Emma groaned, but deep down she couldn't help but laugh too. By afternoon, Max had discovered the Christmas tree. Emma found him halfway up the branches, pawing at a shiny ornament. The tree wobbled dangerously. No, 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 crash. The entire tree toppled sideways, ornaments scattering across the floor. George ran in at the sound, gasping. "Max," he shouted, though his tone was more delighted than angry. "You're a Christmas ninja." Emma knelt among the fallen decorations, holding her head in her hands. This was supposed to be the perfect Christmas. Anna, who had stopped by after her shift, leaned against the doorway, laughing so hard she nearly dropped her coffee. "Oh, it's perfect, all right. Just not the way you planned." Emma shot her a glare. "Anna, you're not helping. I'm documenting this in my memory forever," Anna teased. "Wait until George is older, I'll tell him about the year the beagle won Christmas." George hugged Max tightly, ignoring the wreckage. "Mom, he's not ruining Christmas. He's making it better." Emma looked at her son, his face glowing with joy, despite the chaos. Maybe he was right. That evening, Oliver came by to check on Max. The sight of the toppled tree made him burst out laughing. "I warned you," he said between chuckles. Emma crossed her arms. "You owe me big time." Oliver knelt to help pick up the ornaments, his smile softening. "You've done more for us than I ever imagined. Sophie will never forget this Christmas because of you." Emma hesitated, glancing at him. "And George will never forget that he almost had a dog." Oliver's hand stilled on an ornament. "Almost. That's a hard word for a kid." Emma nodded, her throat tightening. "He's been through so much already. Losing Paul. Sometimes I feel like I've taken every bit of magic out of his childhood." Oliver set down the ornament and looked at her. "Emma, don't say that. You're doing everything you can. And George, he's not missing magic. He has you. That's more than enough." Her breath caught. It had been so long since anyone had spoken to her like that, with such simple, unwavering belief. For a moment, the chaos of the day faded. The room seemed quieter, warmer. Then Max barked loudly, shaking a tinsel strand in his teeth, and both of them burst out laughing. Over the next few days, Emma and Oliver found themselves spending more time together. They walked Max in the snow, shopped at the small-town Christmas market, and even teamed up to bake cookies, though most ended up burnt or half-eaten by Max. George and Sophie grew inseparable, building snow forts and sharing secrets. Their laughter filled the once empty house, echoing through the halls like a promise of brighter days. And slowly, Emma began to realize something. It wasn't just George who needed joy this Christmas. It was her. One evening, as the children watched a holiday movie in the living room, Emma and Oliver sat in the kitchen with mugs of tea. "You know," Oliver said quietly, "Sophie told me last night that this is the best Christmas she's ever had. And it hasn't even happened yet." Emma smiled faintly. "That's sweet," she said. "It feels like we're part of something bigger. A family, almost." Emma's heart skipped. She lowered her gaze to her mug. "Careful, Oliver. That sounds dangerously close to hope." He chuckled. "Hope's not such a bad thing." Silence stretched between them, comfortable and yet charged with something unspoken. Then Max barked again from the living room, and George's laughter followed. Emma smiled, despite herself. "Hope," she repeated softly. But as the night deepened, Emma's phone buzzed. Another message from Mr. Thompson, demanding updates on the campaign. Her chest tightened, the old weight pressing in. Oliver noticed her expression. "Work." Emma nodded reluctantly. "Always work." He studied her carefully. "When was the last time you just let go? Just enjoyed a moment without thinking of what comes next?" Emma thought about it. She couldn't remember. Oliver leaned closer, his voice gentle. "You deserve more than deadlines, Emma. You deserve nights like this. Laughter, family, Maybe even love. Emma froze, her heart thundering. The way he looked at her made it clear he wasn't just talking about Sophie or George. But before she could respond, George called from the living room. "Mom, Max stole my popcorn." Emma laughed, relief and nerves mixing in her chest. "Duty calls," she said, standing quickly. Oliver smiled knowingly. "For now?" That night, as Emma tucked George into bed, he whispered, "Mom, I wish this Christmas would never end." Emma kissed his forehead, her heart aching with both love and fear. "Me too, sweetheart. Me too." But deep down, she knew Christmas always ended. And once it did, reality would return, work deadlines, loneliness, unless she was brave enough to change it. Snow drifted softly outside the windows as the Collins house glowed with warmth. George and Sophie had fallen asleep on the couch after a long day of sledding, Max curled between them like a guardian of dreams. Emma stood at the doorway, watching them with a bittersweet smile. Oliver joined her quietly, holding 2 mugs of cocoa. "They look like they've been friends forever," he said softly. Emma accepted the mug, her fingers brushing his briefly. "They've only known each other a few days, but it feels like more. Like they were meant to find each other." Oliver nodded, his gaze fixed on his daughter. "Sometimes I think kids understand life better than we do. They don't overthink. They just love." Emma's chest tightened. She sipped her cocoa, letting the silence stretch before she finally spoke. "George doesn't remember his father much. He was so young when Paul died." Oliver turned to her gently. "You've never talked about him before." Emma stared into her mug, her voice quiet. "Paul loved Christmas. He was the kind of man who started playing carols in November, who insisted on baking cookies from scratch, even if they turned out terrible. He made everything fun. And then, he was gone. One Christmas morning, George woke up asking for his dad, and I didn't know what to say. Since then, Christmas hasn't felt the same." Her throat tightened as tears filled her eyes. "I buried myself in work. It was easier than facing what we lost." Oliver's eyes softened with understanding. "I know what that feels like. After Sophie's mom left, I thought if I just kept busy, kept us moving forward, I wouldn't have to face the empty spaces she left behind. But Sophie, she felt them anyway. Kids always do." Emma met his gaze. For a moment, the weight of their shared pain bound them together. 2 parents, carrying scars they rarely spoke of, trying to hold their children's worlds together. "You're not alone, Emma," Oliver said quietly. "Not anymore." Her breath caught. She wanted to believe him, but before she could respond, Max stirred, wagging his tail as if reminding them that life wasn't meant to be only sorrow. George mumbled in his sleep, resting his hand on Max's back. Emma wiped her tears and whispered, "Thank you for saying that." Oliver smiled softly. "For once, I didn't overthink. I just said what I felt." The next day, the town square buzzed with Christmas spirit. The market stalls overflowed with ornaments, gingerbread, and hand-knit scarves. Children raced through the snow while carolers sang at the gazebo. Emma, George, Oliver, Sophie, and Max strolled together, blending seamlessly into the festive crowd. George tugged at Emma's coat. "Mom, can we get roasted chestnuts?" Emma laughed. "You don't even like chestnuts, but Sophie does," George replied with a mischievous grin. Emma glanced at Oliver, who chuckled. "Looks like someone's learning fast." As they walked, Emma noticed the way Oliver's hand brushed against hers now and then. Not deliberate, not accidental. Each time, her heart skipped. For the first time in years, she felt like Christmas was more than obligations and deadlines. It was warmth. It was connection. It was possibility. That evening, back at the house, Anna joined them for dinner. She leaned back in her chair, eyeing Emma with a sly grin. "You're glowing," Anna said bluntly. Emma nearly choked on her wine. "Excuse me, don't play innocent. I see the way you look at Oliver, and the way he looks at you." Oliver chuckled, shaking his head. "I think Officer Collins is trying to embarrass us." Anna shrugged. It's my duty as a sister. George and Sophie exchanged confused glances, but quickly went back to feeding scraps of turkey to Max under the table. Emma rolled her eyes, but her cheeks flushed. Anna, please. Anna's smile softened. Look, Em. You've been carrying the world on your shoulders for so long. Maybe it's time to let someone share the weight. Emma's heart squeezed. Her sister's words hit too close to the truth. She glanced at Oliver, who met her eyes steadily. No pressure, no expectations, quiet reassurance. And for the first time in a long time, Emma felt the stirrings of hope. The small town of Pinebrook had always been known for its holiday charm. Every December, the streets turned into a living postcard, lampposts wrapped in garlands, storefronts twinkling with lights, and the scent of cinnamon and pine lingering in the air. Emma hadn't walked through the Christmas market in years. Usually, she avoided it altogether, convincing herself she was too busy with work. But this year, George insisted, and Oliver and Sophie invited them to join. And so, here they were, 2 parents, 2 children, and 1 mischievous beagle blending into the magic of Pinebrook. George's eyes widened as he darted from stall to stall, tugging Emma's hand. Mom, look, they're selling handmade ornaments. Can we get one? Emma smiled, surprised by her own answer. Of course. He carefully chose a wooden star, painted gold, pressing it close to his chest. This one's for Dad. We'll put it on the tree tonight. Emma's throat tightened. She kissed the top of his head. That's perfect, sweetheart. Meanwhile, Sophie squealed with delight at a booth filled with knit scarves. Dad, can Max have one too? Oliver raised an eyebrow. A scarf for the dog. Sophie grinned. Why not? He'll look festive. The vendor, amused, slipped a tiny red scarf around Max's neck. The beagle strutted proudly through the market, tail wagging as if he knew he was the star of the show. See, Sophie declared. Now he's ready for Christmas. George laughed. He looks like a superhero. Max barked happily, as though agreeing. Later, they gathered around the gazebo, where carolers sang classic Christmas hymns. Snowflakes drifted down slowly, catching in Sophie's hair and on George's coat. Emma stood beside Oliver, their shoulders brushing. She felt warmth spread through her, despite the cold air. It's beautiful, isn't it? Oliver murmured. Emma nodded, watching George sway to the music. I'd forgotten how much I loved this. I used to come here every year with my parents. Oliver's eyes softened. Then maybe it's time to start new traditions with George, with us. Emma's heart skipped. She looked at him, really looked, and for a moment the rest of the world faded away. But before either of them could say more, George tugged on Emma's sleeve. Mom, they're lighting the big tree tonight. Can we stay? Emma hesitated. Her mind tugged toward the unfinished campaign waiting on her laptop. But then she saw George's hopeful eyes. Yes, she said firmly. We'll stay. George grinned and ran off to join Sophie near the front of the crowd. Oliver gave Emma a small smile. That was the right choice. Emma exhaled. For once, I didn't let work win. Oliver's smile widened. Good. Because sometimes, Emma, the present matters more than the future. She looked at him, her chest tightening with something she couldn't quite name. Maybe he was right. Maybe, just this once, she could let herself live in the moment. The countdown began. 10, 9, 8. The crowd's voices rang out in unison, filled with anticipation. George grabbed Sophie's hand. This is going to be amazing. Emma watched, her eyes misty. For the first time in years, she wasn't thinking about deadlines or promotions. She was simply here. 3, 2, 1. The massive tree in the center of Pinebrook burst into light, thousands of twinkling bulbs illuminating the snowy square. Gasps of awe filled the air as the crowd cheered. George and Sophie jumped up and down, their laughter echoing through the night. Max barked, tail wagging furiously, as if celebrating too. Emma glanced at Oliver, who was already looking at her. Their eyes locked, and in that glow of Christmas lights, she felt something she thought she had lost forever: hope, wonder, and maybe even love. For the first time in years, Christmas didn't feel like a reminder of what she'd lost. It felt like a promise of what could still be. The glow of the town's Christmas tree still lingered in Emma's mind as she tucked George into bed that night. He clutched the golden wooden star he'd chosen at the market, his eyelids heavy with sleep. "Mom," he murmured drowsily. "This was the best day ever." Emma kissed his forehead, her heart swelling. "I'm glad, sweetheart. Merry Christmas." She turned off the light and quietly stepped into the hallway, a soft smile still on her lips. For the first time in years, she felt like she was getting it right. Then her phone buzzed. She froze. The screen glowed with a message from Mr. Thompson. "Urgent. Call me immediately." Emma's chest tightened. She stepped into the kitchen, not wanting to wake George, and dialed. "Emma." Mr. Thompson's voice snapped through the line. "We have a crisis. Sunset Halo backed out of hosting the fundraiser. 500 guests, nowhere to go, and we need a new venue tonight. Plus, a revised press release by morning." Emma's stomach dropped. "But it's Christmas Eve tomorrow. Can't Nelson handle this?" "It's his account. Nelson's out of the country with his family," Mr. Thompson said flatly. "You're the most reliable person I have. I need you to step up." "Promotions are on the line here, Emma." Her heart pounded. Promotions. The future she had been chasing for so long. Security for George. Everything she had worked for. But then she glanced toward the hallway where her son slept peacefully, dreaming of Christmas magic. Her voice trembled. "Sir, it's Christmas Eve." "My son Emma," Mr. Thompson interrupted sharply. "I expect your commitment. Sometimes sacrifices are necessary for long-term rewards. You understand what's at stake." The line went dead. Emma stood frozen, the weight of the decision pressing on her chest like a stone. The next morning, the house buzzed with energy. George and Sophie raced through the living room, chasing Max as he darted under the coffee table. Oliver laughed, sipping coffee with Anna, who had dropped by after her night shift. "Looks like Christmas chaos has officially arrived," Anna said, watching Max slide across the hardwood floor. Emma forced a smile, but her mind was elsewhere. She hadn't slept. The words "promotions are on the line" haunted her. Oliver noticed her distant look. "Everything okay?" Emma hesitated. She wanted to tell him. She wanted to spill everything about the call, the pressure, the fear of failing both her boss and her son. But instead, she shook her head. "Just tired." Anna narrowed her eyes, unconvinced. But before she could press, George bounded over, out of breath. "Mom, tonight is the big tree lighting ceremony in the square, remember? You promised we'd go together." Emma's stomach clenched. She had promised. "Of course," she said softly, though doubt gnawed at her. By afternoon, the decision could no longer be avoided. Her phone buzzed constantly with emails, demands, deadlines. She sat at the kitchen table, laptop open, typing furiously, while the sound of laughter echoed from the living room. "Mom." George appeared in the doorway, his face hopeful. "Are you coming to build the gingerbread house with us?" Emma's fingers froze on the keyboard. She looked at him, his eyes so full of trust, so full of the belief that she would keep her promise. Her chest ached. "Sweetheart, I can't right now. I have work." George's smile faded. "But you said this Christmas would be different." Emma's throat tightened. "I know. I'm trying, George. I really am." But his expression told her it wasn't enough. Later, as the sun dipped and the town prepared for the ceremony, Emma packed her laptop into her bag. "Emma," Oliver said, catching her by the door. "Where are you going?" She avoided his gaze. "I have to drive to the city. Work needs me." His brow furrowed. "It's Christmas Eve. They can't seriously expect you to." "They do," Emma cut in sharply, her voice cracking. "If I don't do this, I might lose my chance at the promotion. Everything I've worked for, everything I've done for George could slip away." Oliver's eyes softened. Emma, what George wants isn't a promotion. He wants you. Her chest burned. She wanted to believe him, but fear whispered louder. George appeared behind them, clutching his coat. You're leaving? His voice trembled. Emma knelt, trying to explain. Sweetheart, I'll be back in time for the tree lighting. I promise. But George's face crumpled. You always promise. And you always break it. The words hit her harder than any scolding from Mr. Thompson ever could. Tears welled in his eyes as he whispered, I don't care about promotions. I just wanted Christmas with you. He ran to his room, slamming the door. Emma's own eyes filled, but she forced herself to stand. I'll fix this, she told Oliver, though her voice shook. I have to. She grabbed her bag, stepped into the cold, and drove into the snowy night. But as the road stretched before her, lit only by her headlights, Emma couldn't escape the question echoing in her mind. Was she about to lose the one thing that mattered most, just to prove herself to people who didn't care? The highway stretched endlessly before Emma, a ribbon of black asphalt dusted with snow. The windshield wipers beat a steady rhythm, but it couldn't drown out the sound of George's words echoing in her head. You always promise, and you always break it. Her hands tightened on the steering wheel. For years, she had told herself that every sacrifice she made at work was for George, for his future, his stability, his happiness. But what if, in chasing the future, she had been blind to the present slipping away? Her phone buzzed on the seat beside her. Mr. Thompson's name lit up the screen. She answered reluctantly. Yes, sir. Emma, where are you? His voice was sharp, impatient. On my way to the office, she said flatly. Good. I knew I could count on you. Now, I need drafts of the press release by the time I arrive, and Emma, don't let me down. This is your chance to prove your leadership material. Emma's chest constricted. For years, those words, don't let me down, had driven her to stay late, miss dinners, cancel holidays. But tonight, something inside her cracked. Mr. Thompson, she said slowly, I've given this company everything. Nights, weekends, holidays, and I'm proud of my work. But tonight is Christmas Eve. Tonight, my son needs me more than you do. There was a stunned silence on the line. Emma, he barked, this is unacceptable. If you walk away from this, you can kiss that promotion goodbye. She took a deep breath, her hands trembling but steady on the wheel. Then so be it. Because if I miss tonight, I'll lose something far more important than a promotion. Before he could respond, she ended the call. For the first time in years, Emma felt free. Back in Pinebrook, the ceremony had begun. The town square buzzed with laughter and music as families gathered around the towering Christmas tree. Children ran through the snow, their cheeks rosy with excitement. George stood among them, his coat zipped tight, his small hand clenched around Sophie's. But his eyes searched the crowd constantly, hope flickering with each passing moment. Anna knelt beside him. She come, George. Your mom's not going to miss this. George bit his lip, not answering. He wanted to believe her. He really did. Oliver placed a reassuring hand on his daughter's shoulder, his gaze drifting to George. He saw the boy's struggle, the way he tried to be brave, and he silently prayed Emma would choose differently this time. Meanwhile, Emma sped back toward Pinebrook, her heart pounding. The snow fell thicker now, blurring the road ahead. She whispered to herself, please, let me make it in time, please. As she neared the edge of town, flashing lights appeared behind her. A police car. Panic shot through her. She slowed and pulled to the side. The officer stepped out, but relief washed over her when she saw who it was. Nana. Emma rolled down the window. Anna. I don't have time for Anna, cut her off, sliding into the passenger seat. Then let's get you there faster. She grabbed the radio. Dispatch. We've got a Christmas emergency. Lights on. The sirens wailed, and together they raced into town. Emma's chest filled with gratitude. Thank you, Anna smirked. What are sisters for? By the time they reached the square, the countdown had begun. 10, 9, 8. Emma jumped out of the car, sprinting through the crowd. People turned, surprised, but she didn't care. All she saw was George, standing by the tree, his small face lit by the glow of anticipation and hurt. 3, 2, 1. The tree burst into light, dazzling the square with 1,000 twinkling bulbs. Cheers erupted, but George didn't join in. He stood still, his eyes searching. "George," he turned at the sound of her voice. Emma pushed through the crowd, breathless tears in her eyes. "I'm here, sweetheart. I'm so sorry, I almost missed it. But I chose you. I'll always choose you." George's lip trembled before he ran into her arms. "You really came." Emma hugged him tightly, her tears falling into his hair. "I'll never let work take me from you again. I promise." This time, she meant it. Oliver approached, Sophie at his side, Max tugging on his leash. He smiled gently at Emma. "Looks like you made it after all." Emma looked at him, her arms still around George. "I almost lost what matters most. But not anymore." Oliver's eyes softened, filled with quiet admiration. As the crowd sang carols around them, Emma felt a warmth she hadn't known in years. Christmas wasn't about promotions or perfection. It was about moments like this, imperfect, fleeting, but real. And for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to believe in miracles again. The cheers from the crowd echoed through Pinebrook's snowy square, but for Emma, everything narrowed to the little boy clinging to her side. George's arms wrapped tightly around her waist as if he feared she might vanish again. "I'm here, George," she whispered, her voice breaking. "And I'm not going anywhere." George leaned back just enough to look up at her. His eyes, still wet with tears, searched her face. "Even if Mr. Thompson calls again." Emma smiled through her own tears. "Even if he calls 100 times. Tonight, tomorrow, forever you come first." George's expression softened, relief flooding his small features. He squeezed her tighter, as though finally believing. The ceremony continued, carolers filling the night with harmonies, but Emma barely noticed. She and George swayed together beneath the glow of the tree, Max tugging at his leash nearby as Sophie laughed. Oliver stepped closer, his gaze steady and warm. "You made the right choice, Emma." She looked at him, her chest full. "For once, I know I did." Anna, still in uniform, approached with a playful grin. "Nice entrance, by the way." Sirens blazing, sprinting through the crowd. "You really know how to make a statement." Emma laughed, shaking her head. "Leave it to you to turn my breakdown into a spectacle." "Hey," Anna said with a wink. "That's what little sisters are for." George tugged at Anna's sleeve. "Aunt Anna, Mom kept her promise." Anna crouched, ruffling his hair. "Told you she would, champ." Emma's throat tightened at the trust in her sister's voice. For years, she had been drowning in guilt, but tonight felt like the first breath of forgiveness. After the ceremony, the group returned to Emma's house. The fire crackled in the hearth, stockings hung neatly, and the golden star George had chosen glimmered proudly on the tree. George and Sophie curled on the couch, sharing cookies while Max dozed between them. Their laughter filled the room, the pure sound of children who believed in magic. Oliver joined Emma in the kitchen, where she was making cocoa. For a moment, they simply stood together in comfortable silence, the warmth of the fire and the scent of cinnamon wrapping around them. Finally, Oliver spoke. "You know, I think Max has decided he belongs here." Emma chuckled. "He's been here long enough to believe it." Oliver's gaze softened. "So has Sophie. She feels at home with you and George." Emma's heart swelled, her cheeks warming. "I didn't expect any of this." "Not the dog, not the chaos, not—" She trailed off, her eyes meeting his. "Not me?" he asked gently. She hesitated, then smiled. "Not the way you've made me believe in Christmas again." For a moment, neither moved. Then Oliver reached across the counter, brushing a strand of hair from her face. His hand lingered, warm and sure. Emma's breath caught. It had been so long since anyone had touched her like this, not out of pity, but out of genuine care. Emma, Oliver whispered. You don't have to do this alone anymore. Her eyes burned with tears. But this time they weren't from grief. I'm starting to believe that. George's voice carried from the living room. Mom, we're watching a movie. You and Oliver have to come. Emma laughed, wiping her eyes quickly. Duty calls. Oliver offered his arm, and she took it, walking together into the living room. The four of them, 2 parents, 2 children, and 1 sleepy beagle settled onto the couch. George leaned against Emma, Sophie against Oliver, and Max sprawled across all their laps, snoring happily. For the first time in years, Emma felt whole. Not perfect, not without pain, but whole. She pressed a kiss to George's hair and whispered, "This is what Christmas is meant to be." And deep down, she knew it was only the beginning. Morning broke with soft light spilling through the curtains, painting the living room in hues of gold. The house smelled faintly of pine and cinnamon, and the only sound was the gentle crackle of the fireplace. George was the first to stir. He rubbed his eyes, then gasped as he saw the stockings bulging with gifts, and the presents neatly stacked under the tree. Mom, Sophie, wake up. It's Christmas. Sophie jumped up immediately, Max barking in excitement, as if he understood the importance of the day. Oliver chuckled, stretching as Emma entered the room, her hair tousled, her smile sleepy but genuine. Slow down, George, she teased. Santa left plenty for everyone. George grinned, kneeling beside the tree. He handed Sophie a brightly wrapped box, then began tearing into his own. Max barked again, pawing at a small package with a red ribbon. Oliver crouched beside him, laughing. Looks like Max knows which one is his. Sophie giggled as she helped the beagle unwrap a new chew toy and a bone-shaped treat. Merry Christmas, Max. George hugged the dog tightly. Best Christmas ever. Emma watched them, her heart swelling. For years, Christmas morning had felt empty, but today, surrounded by laughter, warmth, and love, it finally felt whole. After the presents were opened, Emma turned to Oliver, her brow furrowed in curiosity. So, about Max? Oliver smiled, kneeling in front of Sophie. Sweetheart, there is one more gift for you. Sophie tilted her head. What is it? Oliver gestured to Max, who wagged his tail furiously. Max isn't just visiting, he's yours. Merry Christmas, Sophie. Her jaw dropped. He's mine, forever. Oliver nodded, tears shining in his eyes. Forever? Sophie squealed, wrapping her arms around Max, who responded with enthusiastic licks. Thank you, Daddy. George clapped his hands, but then his smile faltered just a little. So, Max belongs to Sophie. Emma's heart clenched, but before she could say anything, Oliver crouched beside George. Max may be Sophie's dog, but you're his best friend too, and you're always welcome to share him. George's face brightened. Really? Oliver nodded. Really? He belongs to both of you. In a way, George hugged Max alongside Sophie. Then he's part of all of us. Emma's eyes filled with tears. Oliver caught her gaze, his expression tender. In that moment, she realized it wasn't just about a dog, it was about the family they were slowly becoming. Later that afternoon, the group bundled into coats and scarves, heading to the local animal shelter. Emma had been hesitant at first, worried George might feel disappointed. But when Oliver explained his idea to bring food, blankets, and toys for the shelter dogs, she knew it was the right thing. Christmas isn't only about what we get, Oliver told the children as they walked. It's about what we give. George and Sophie nodded solemnly, clutching bags of donated treats. Max trotted proudly at their side, his new scarf fluttering in the cold breeze. At the shelter, the children eagerly handed out toys and blankets. George knelt beside a timid puppy, stroking its fur gently. Don't worry, someone will love you soon. Emma's chest swelled with pride. For the first time, she wasn't just watching her son grow, she was present for it. That evening, as the sun set over Pine Brook, the families gathered once more around the Collins fireplace. Anna joined them, raising a glass of cider. To family, she declared. The ones we're born into and the ones we find. Everyone echoed the toast, their voices warm with laughter. George leaned against Emma, whispering, "This is the best Christmas, Mom. Not because of the presents, because we're not alone anymore." Emma hugged him tightly, her heart overflowing. "You're right, sweetheart. We're not." Oliver's hand brushed against hers where they sat, their fingers intertwining naturally. She didn't pull away. Outside, snow fell softly, blanketing the town in silence. Inside, the Collins and Harris families shared cocoa, laughter, and the warmth of something new. It wasn't just Christmas. It was the beginning of a future filled with hope. Snow continued to fall over Pine Brook, blanketing the small town in quiet beauty. The holiday rush had slowed, leaving behind glowing windows, laughter from families, and the lingering warmth of togetherness. Inside the Collins home, the fireplace crackled softly. Ornaments still gleamed on the crooked Christmas tree, and the golden wooden star George had chosen shone proudly at the top. Emma sat curled on the couch, George resting peacefully against her side, fast asleep after a day full of excitement. Max lay stretched out on the rug, his tiny red scarf slipping down his neck as he snored. Sophie was curled nearby, her hand resting on the beagle's back as if afraid he might disappear. Oliver entered quietly from the kitchen, carrying 2 mugs of tea. He handed one to Emma before settling beside her. "They're going to remember this Christmas forever," he whispered, glancing at the children. Emma smiled softly. "So will we." For a long moment, they sat in silence, the only sounds, the fire and Max's rhythmic snores. Then Emma spoke, her voice hushed. "I used to think I had to choose between being a good mother and having a life of my own, between stability and happiness, between the past and the future, but maybe it doesn't have to be a choice." Oliver's eyes met hers, steady and warm. "It doesn't. You just have to let yourself believe it's possible." Emma exhaled slowly, her hand brushing his. "For the first time, I do." Their fingers intertwined naturally, and Emma felt a quiet certainty settle in her heart. This wasn't about perfection or grand gestures. It was about small moments, the laughter of children, the wag of a dog's tail, the simple comfort of someone sitting beside you. It was about family. The following days were filled with more snow, more laughter, and more moments that stitched their lives together. George and Sophie built snow forts, while Max patrolled proudly like a guardian knight. Anna dropped by constantly, bringing her humor and sharp wisdom, reminding Emma that no matter what, she wasn't alone. And Emma, for once, found herself closing her laptop, turning off her phone, and living in the present. Mr. Thompson had called again, of course, but Emma let the call go unanswered. She knew now that no promotion, no job title, could ever replace the joy of watching George's smile grow brighter each day. One evening, as the children decorated sugar cookies, George looked up at Emma. "Mom, this was the best Christmas ever. Not because of the presents, because we were all together." Emma hugged him tightly. "And that's what every Christmas will be from now on, together." As the season came to an end, Emma stood at the doorway one snowy morning, watching George and Sophie race down the street, with Max bounding happily between them. Oliver stepped beside her, his breath clouding in the cold air. "They make quite the team," he said. Emma smiled. "So do we." Oliver turned, his eyes softening. "Emma, I don't want this to end when the holidays are over. I want this Seuss to last." Her heart swelled, and for the first time in years, she didn't hesitate. She reached for his hand and whispered, "Me too." That night, as the last of the Christmas lights flickered across Pine Brook, Emma sat quietly, reflecting. Life hadn't gone the way she once imagined. She had faced loss, loneliness, and the crushing weight of expectations. But here, in the warmth of family, both old and new, she found something greater than she ever dreamed: love, belonging, and hope. And she realized that sometimes, the miracles we search for aren't grand or impossible. Sometimes, they're found in the wag of a beagle's tail, the laughter of children, or the gentle touch of someone who chooses to stay. Christmas wasn't just a holiday, it was a reminder that even after the hardest winters, light always returns. And so, Emma, George, Oliver, Sophie, and Max discovered that Christmas isn't about perfection, or presents, or even traditions. It's about love, family, and the courage to open your heart again. Thank you for staying with us until the end of this story. If it touched your heart, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to our channel, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss the next tale. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. What's the most meaningful Christmas memory you've ever had? And if you're ready for more heartfelt journeys, stay with us for our next story. You won't want to miss it. Lasting Tales, because every story leaves a mark that never fades.